Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tea Time with Eddie. So, I'm out in the park again. The woods is much more green than when I last saw it. And as I stand out here, on this day of 55-degree weather, towards the end of the month of May, I have a couple sort of considerations on my mind in a worldly sense. First of all, one of the considerations I have is to maybe sort of not necessarily engage in as like a vigorous outburst of verbal energy as perhaps I may be more compelled to give under slightly different conditions. And one of the reasons for this is because of the fact that right now there are a lot of mosquitoes in the woods, and due to the very useful studies of modern scientists, we have determined that mosquitoes are most attracted to the carbon dioxide that is emitted from mammals. And so if I was to really kind of very verbally sort of outburst passionate ideas, I would find myself somewhat more attracted. I mean, the mosquitoes would find themselves somewhat more attracted to me. And so with that being said, as it is coming out now, is sort of like how it feels like it should be. However, though, if the weather was considerably warmer right now, I am quite sure that the mosquitoes will be quite more prominent, and I would probably have to sort of find a different sort of setting to as I just mentioned, I just saw a very large mosquito actually become very attractive to my face. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind, although the conditions are actually quite skillful for expounding verbal dialogue right now. So it's a wonderful Sunday. Tomorrow my parents will be having their 41st wedding anniversary, and that's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing indeed. And the main subject I would like to get into will be the ability to make yourself happy in any given situation. Now, the key to being able to make yourself happy would have to be understanding your individual karma and the mutual shared karma you have with others. The reason for this is because there is a certain degree of self-knowledge, a certain degree of understanding of the nature of how things are, how you perceive them, is a result of choices you've made. And when you kind of understand this, you then begin to understand the potential to purify yourself through the choices you can make, and you can rejoice when you start to make choices that have this pure motivation. And this process of rejoicing in these choices is a very euphoric sensation. And when this euphoric sensation is experienced, it's important to dedicate that sensation, dedicate all the good vibrations of it towards the achievement of a higher state, towards the achievement of your most natural, primordial, enlightened state. And also, when you do dedicate this sensation of euphoria, when you start to have pure motivation from your actions of purification, what occurs then is you start to be able to recollect that sensation of euphoria. And at almost any given moment, you actually have the ability to sort of place yourself within that state. And when you start to really notice this, it's interesting. If I feel like my voice is if I'm emitting too much carbon dioxide, I'm seeing more mosquitoes around my face. So it's an interesting balancing act that I have to do right now. There's an interesting sort of tone of energy to make myself slightly less attractive to them. But there's also an understanding as well that there's only so much I can do considering the physical aggregates that I possess. So, when you have a sort of definite sense of recollection of this sensation of euphoria, there is the potential to recollect, to sort of habituate this sensation of euphoria. And what this is essentially doing, it is essentially the path of climbing the mountain by instantaneously being on its top. You understand that this sensation of euphoria is connected to this whole entire process or path of purification, of dedication, of accumulation as well. And when you understand this, you can simultaneously, naturally do all of these things at once. And if you have, and very simply put, if you have this steady state of euphoria, this is a sign that you are doing these activities. And that goes alongside with an understanding of your individual karma. Now, there is also as well the perception of mutual karma that you have with other sentient beings. And mutual karma is, simply put, very practically put, it is just the ability to actually see other beings and have those beings see you. And being able to, with those other beings, see objects and be able to have a similar sense of those objects. Now, it can get quite complicated when you are really analyzing the qualities of objects with other beings, because there can be very easily a dialectical debate of the true nature of these objects, which makes perfect sense, because what is occurring then is you're getting more into sharing your individual karma with the other person. So, as I was stating, when it comes to this sort of state of euphoria, what's important is to understand it skillfully. Now, there are occasions when you are experiencing this state of euphoria, and you also are able to feel quite compelled to be able to express that with the various natural tendencies available to you within mutual perception of other beings. And there are occasions when this is quite amazing. Personally speaking, I definitely have experienced that sensation numerous times. I'm very fortunate in that regard. But also, I don't feel like this fortune has come from nowhere, of course. But very pertinent examples of this have been numerous parties which I have attended throughout my life, and during those occasions I found myself being able to perform actions of joy quite naturally around with those around me, and not feel as if those actions of joy caused any kind of particular sort of disturbance, or any kind of particular sort of didn't have any particular sort of motivation of actually being truly recognized, as if it had to be acknowledged and praised or anything like that. And so there are certain times when you can perform actions of joy around others. You can perform actions of joy without expectation of recognition or praise. And you are able to do so with feeling a sense of tolerance to the individuals that are around you. And these are definite occasions which should be celebrated and dedicated. And also as well, you will also notice that there are occasions when you feel like if you were to implore the methods of expressions of joy that were used in more naturally occurring situations previously, you may notice that it doesn't necessarily feel as flowing, and it may actually compel somewhat of a confrontational atmosphere, one in which was not necessarily intended, or it may cause an irritation to others. It can be somewhat irritating if you continuously assume that the state of euphoria you are experiencing is something that is immediately shared with those around you. It can be irritating to those others around you, and eventually they may sort of like have a bit of an outburst of aversion towards those particular your actions with that motivation of that assumption. And that has happened to me numerous times in this life. But it's also part of the reason to actually be in this world, is to learn from experiences like that. And they're very great treasures when that happens. And what those experiences do teach you is, simply put, teach you like the necessity for having a true sense of freedom, and also the understanding of the importance of developing greater levels of skillful means. And that's really what I guess it's coming down to. To properly be able to recollect a state of to make yourself happy at any given moment, actually requires to have a very high state of skillful means. And basically, when someone who is truly accomplished and has extraordinary skillful means, and such means are living in this world right now, and have lived in this world on numerous occasions throughout history. When such beings have this I feel like I'm getting mosquito bites on my complexion a little bit. It should be somewhat manageable, but we'll just have to monitor them and see how that all kind of plays out, because this world, this world has a very interesting connection with the body, and it's actually really worth paying attention to. So, as I was stating, now the methods of skillful means, the manifestations of skillful means, these can be infinitely complex. And there's a reason for this, because they all are like the branching out from a solid base. And all skillful means originate from a solid base. And this solid base comes from, I would say, a very strong sense of calm abiding. It is being able to, through your awareness, understand that every single aspect of appearance is but just a brief coming together of numerous causes and conditions. And these causes and conditions come from other causes and conditions. And therefore, they all have this base in baselessness. And so, if you have truly high levels of skillful means, you can simply just be able to identify your awareness in any given moment. And if you are able to just identify your awareness in any given moment and understand that this awareness as is at this time does not need to be added to or subtracted from. When you understand this, what occurs is a feeling of spaciousness. And this spaciousness is not like truly empty, not in the very least. It is rather a place in which there is infinite potential for formations to occur. And these formations are the modes of skillful means that are at the disposal for those who have the ability to identify what to do at the right time based off of their base of understanding, identification of their awareness as is. And so, yeah. Well, this has really been a fantastic episode. And I think I learned quite a bit of how to sort of interact within the forest filled with mosquitoes. And this has been a very kind day for that regard because the weather is rather windy and cool. So it's fairly easy to sort of understand the level of breathing outward that occurs. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode of Tea Time with Eddie, and peace in.